Hello, everyone. It's me, Stuart Fetzer, CEO of Pain Relief Technologies. I'm excited to share with everyone a conversation that I'm having today with an incredible individual by the name of Matthew Embry. The reason why I'm excited about this conversation is because I believe that Matthew's experience over the last nearly 30 years will really resonate with our customers and their life experiences. So Matthew, at age 19, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and for almost 30 years has been living relatively symptom-free. And we're going to find out why. We're going to find out about his journey, about the things he believes in, and what he has discovered that have helped him live the life he's lived for the last 30 years since his diagnosis. So, Matthew, it's great to meet you, and thank you for being willing to join us in this conversation.
Thanks, Stuart, and thanks for having me and bringing some awareness to what we're up to as well.
Good. I wonder if you wouldn't mind if we start by letting people know where they can find out more about you. Let them know now at the beginning of the conversation so they can look you up and learn a lot more.
Sure. So, I mean, the easiest place would be mshope.com. Beyond just putting my name into Google, mshope.com is a good place to start. And that's where you'll find pretty much all the information we'll discuss today with totally free access for everybody.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'm fortunate enough to have seen Living Proof, the documentary that you created, and have to say I was really inspired by your experience. And so I'd like to talk, if you wouldn't mind, about some really personal things, I'm sure, for you, just to open people's minds and make them aware of what you do and why.
Let's do it.
So age 19, you were diagnosed. Would you mind sharing the emotion you had when you experienced that?
Sure. I mean, we're going back a long way now. So, I mean, I was diagnosed in 1995. So, this is over a quarter of a century. So, I mean, digging into that could be, I kind of remember it was more shock. If anything else, it was shock. That was the key emotion. I think that I didn't know much about MS at the time. I was young. And that at that time, it was more a question of where this was going to go for me as a young person. And I was an athlete and really enjoyed, using my body to its fullest abilities. And I knew that MS could possibly rob people of that. And that, if I had another emotion, it may have been fear, but more or less shock was the big one.
I imagine so. And at 19, I know that I wasn't very familiar with MS, nor the consequences of what life with MS could be like. I imagine you did some research immediately and saw how scary it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew a little bit because my mom was a nurse. So I had, a rough idea in my mind, but it was bad. Like, I didn't have any of the good case studies in my head whatsoever. It was very, very negative. And, in all honesty, I didn't research too much the bad cases, if that makes sense. I really, I got my mind into a fight perspective very quickly. And not fight it.
That makes sense, and it relates to the fact that you've called your company MS Hope, right? Not MS Despair.
Mm-hmm.
You have that mentality of hopefulness and being willing to fight it.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's a choice. It's a choice, and I really try to tell people that when a health crises come, it's a potential turning point for you. That you've done your best up until then. But now you got a problem, and you got to change, because if you want different outcomes, you got to change the way you're living.
Yeah, and you have to be strict about it, is what I'm seeing, especially with the message that you've shared on the documentary Living Proof. One of the things that I loved so much about watching that documentary was the perspective of your parents.
Mm-hmm.
uncle talks about your dad in the documentary about being an eager beaver with data discovery, right? I think he uses that term. And your dad immediately started researching what you could do, what they could do to help you manage your diagnosis. Can you describe what his life was like and what he did to get the knowledge that he gained?
Yeah, so my dad is he went to university, he's a PhD in research geology. So he already had that training and that mindset. My mom was also a nurse. So it was a really good combination of skill sets, as well as my mom was always open to concepts of nutrition and lifestyle in regards to health. And that was something she did. On the way home from the diagnosis, I recall she said in the car, "This has to have something to do with diet." And that has stuck with me up until then. And then oddly, and I've shared this on other podcasts, about a month before my first attack, I had this voice in my head that said, "You have to change your diet." And so, there were a few interesting things that, synchronicities or, coincidences, so to speak. And then my dad, he went the science route, went right to the medical library, started digging in, and it was nutritional strategies where the science led for him. And right now, I advocate for the science-based nutritional strategies. And his life for a period of time was immersed in that. And I'm a father. I mean, I've got 2 kids, and I get it. I mean, I think that at the time I didn't really understand it, but now I totally understand. When crisis hits, you got to take action, and that's what we did.
Oh, yeah. That's so cool. And I'm just curious, if you wouldn't mind, what was your diet like before you had your first episode? And then,
man,
yeah, because I'm worried that might still be my diet.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the time of Pizza Pops and Yop, and it was that my diet was high sugar, high fat, high caffeine. I was smoking at the time because I was an actor, and I was in a play that I had to actually smoke. It was a train wreck. Potato chips, you name it. Like, it was just bad. And so for me, it was a radical shift. But to be, again, I was open to it. I wasn't closed. I kind of had a deep sense that it had to change anyhow. I knew the outcome of MS was so bad. Like, I knew how bad it could get for me. Right or wrong, I love using my body. I love the things it can do. I love being here on the earth. I like it. I'm one of those people who I just love doing stuff. Athletic activities, and I just like what it can do. And the thought of it,
keep it.
Yeah, and I wanted to keep it. I wanted to get married, and I wanted to have kids, and that was my journey. Like, that's what I wanted. And it's not. I know, like, it's not for everybody, but that's for me, and that was the path. And I saw this as like seriously disrupting that, right, if I didn't keep it together. And I think back to Stuart's point with my dad going doing the research, because I knew the science and I learned with him, or he taught me, and that really helped, because then it made it all make sense for what not to do.
Yeah. I love that you actually had an example of someone who had experienced the improvement in lifestyle by changing their diet. And I think in the movie, you call her the godmother of MS diet. Her name is Judy, and she wrote the book. I think MS Patient is what it was. And you went to visit her. And one of the things that I think struck me so hard and that felt so heavy on my mind as I watched that, thinking about your life in particular, was that you almost have to understand the fear of losing your ability and make sure every single moment counts. in your diet management?
Yeah. I mean, you're bang on. You're right on. I mean, a lot of people in the course of the last 30 years tell me, oh, you can't have fear. You can't live with fear and all this type of thing. I'm like, no, like that's not, for me, that's not realistic. Like I'm going to be scared. Even today, before I had a piece of my wife's hair was on my hand and I felt tingly. I'm, oh no, my hand. Oh, it's my wife's hair. And that's 30 years. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't go away. And I think that, but for me, what I've learned is how to use the fear to push me. And that's very powerful if you can channel that emotion the right way. And anger, fear, I've learned how to get those behind me instead of pushing me back.
That mentality motivates you and helps you see what life can be like the power of that, envisioning the future and how positive it can. That I'm sure plays a part, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm a believer, right or wrong, that this is it. I'm not one of these people who thinks that there's possibly something better to come. I don't have that view. I have a view that this is this may be all there is right now. So then if my now is not good, I got to change something to make it good. And I'm not going to bet or double down on something I've never seen or someone tells me about. I know what's real in my life, and I'm going to get after it. And that, again, it comes down to choices. And you said it earlier, the key word for me is discipline. It's a word not a lot of people like, even me, even I don't like it, but I've learned to live with it. And that's hopefully what I try to share with people.
Well, what I love about your story is that not only is it a very personal journey for you, but you have turned your personal journey into a platform to help others, and you really advocate for other people's health as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it went. I mean, that certainly was not my intention like 30 years ago. I think, again, right or wrong, I focused primarily on myself for a long time, making sure I was good. And then only in the last maybe decade have I stepped out publicly, and really it's become a major part of my life. And thank God it did, because here I am talking to you, and hopefully this reaches other people.
So Matthew, what caused that transition? Why did you go from being mostly internally focused to outwardly focused to help others?
Well, I had a couple things. I mean, I had kids, and that really changed my worldview. It really changed my perspective. That was, it was so dramatic of a shift for me in my mind. And then I had a couple incidents where I'd run into someone at a long-term care facility who I thought maybe I knew from the past, and I thought, hey, like if I didn't get that person, maybe it's my fault that I didn't get them the information. So that was a very jarring, dramatic, and I don't know if it was that person, but it really shook me. And then my parents had an event that they were putting on, because they were the ones who were, pushing the charity, and I'd taken total back seat. And I'd gone on with my life. I was a movie director and television commercials, had 2 kids, and almost nobody even knew I had the disease. And then they had an event, and almost nobody came, and I got really, really frustrated. And then I said, we got to do something here. And I was a filmmaker, and I had a film production company, and I'm like, we got to get the message out, and I got to help. And then, I also turned 40. I don't know, like a lot changed. And if you wouldn't have had if you had a time machine, went back and told me this is what I'd be doing at 30, I would think you're insane. What I've learned is that if you just put it out there for free, that's a huge part of our mission. And you just share the truth. I mean, every day is not easy. I tell people that, and I'm not afraid to go in those places with people. But whether it's multiple sclerosis, whether it's pain management, whether it's another disease, it's, we're all facing the same thing. We all want a great life. And if things are holding us back, then like, what are we going to do to change it? And if you think someone or help's on the way, likely isn't. And I share one
You
thing
gotta
on, so sorry.
I say you've got to find your own help. You're in charge of your own salvation, right?
Exactly. And I have this one, I have like the perfect story for people that demonstrate this, where it's like, I've got a great family and friends, and I've got like 60,000 followers plus whatever the case, maybe 100,000 now. But how many people do you think ever write me and say, have a good workout today? Zero. Like, ever. And so, I tell that story not because it's poor me, but it's just like, hey, this is how it works. Nobody's coming. And, you may think that just because, I'm not friends, whatever. No. Even when you have an audience and you're still on your own. One thing I try to share is it's not a glamorous road. And it's not something that, even last night was a perfect example. I'm in Canada. It's getting cold. It's dark. I haven't got a workout, and I have to go to the gym at 8:00 at night. Nobody wants to do that, me included. And so I try to teach those skills of how you override that mind that's saying, just have a cup of tea and like, no, you gotta, if you want good outcomes, you gotta do these things, and off you go.
Well, it doesn't just start at the decision to go to the workout either. I imagine in the workout too, you could say, I'm going to take it easy today, but you have to convince yourself to sweat harder, to try harder.
Yeah. And these are mental disciplines, which are so hard for everybody. Everybody, I think, struggles with this, but there are real world things you can do to get it going and to at least try. You're not going to win every day.
Yeah. So Matthew, I'd like to ask you, in your experience, if you have seen that the recommendations you make to people to help their MS diagnosis and symptoms end up helping people with other symptoms and other life issues that they're experiencing.
Oh yeah. That's, it's not as much anymore because the momentum of the movie has died down where I get contacted, but I get contacted by people all over the world who have different conditions that have used more or less the same thing. And again, these are anecdotal, so I'm not saying that this is scientifically sound. I'm saying these are anecdotes that I get, people who have arthritis, chronic fatigue. We've had things like that, lupus, what's that skin disease? Psoriasis, all sorts of things. And then even, more recently, it's more the parents of my kids, like the parents of my kids' friends, come to me now and looking for information and take the book that, Catherine showed us. And, they come back and they've lost 25 pounds and they've, I see them at soccer and they're like, this is my Bible. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. Like, great. Like, I hope it, keep going. It's those kind of transformations that we see.
Now, the next question I've got, I hesitate to bring up, but it's something that people in the pain relief industry experience, just like I've seen the people in the MS industry experience. That is, there are big organizations who have financial reasons to tell people that this isn't a good solution, that natural solutions, that diet solutions may not work as a pill solution. And I know that is a big hurdle to overcome sometimes for people, because there are a lot of people who believe that and buy into it. How do you encourage people to try something that isn't just pharmacological?
Great question. I never tell people not to take a drug. I firmly believe people have to make their own decisions. So that's number one. I say, look, I'm not going to weigh in on these issues when it comes to drugs for people. You got to do what you got to do. At the same time, if that road is not what you want to go down, we try our best to provide as much science-based literature so people can understand how nutritional strategies can affect their lives. So, if you go to mshope.com, you'll see, I think it's the top 14 scientific articles right now that we've truncated down to a simple PDF for people. Like, here it is. If you, you want to argue some science, that's fine. I'm happy to do that. But check this out. Ask your doctor, ask your family what they think. And then repeat. As more science comes out, I share. Hey, here's another study on, young people who, if they don't drink milk, their outcomes. Maybe you should check it out. The pain relief industry, I mean, you're up against opioids. I directed Painkiller Inside the Opioid Crisis. I don't know if you saw that film that I did. And
I will now.
It's so I did we were one of the first films that actually exposed the whole Purdue scandal. That would have been back in 2018. But anyhow, so I totally understand it. And ideas of hyperalgesia and all these types of things. People just, you got to dig in it too. It's complicated, especially for people who don't have a science background or don't understand medical literature. And we try our best to make it accessible to people. So we'll talk about something. So say like there's a certain MS drug that's doing something good or bad. We'll talk about both, and we'll talk about, hopefully, we ask questions and we try to educate people as to what some of the science is saying. But ultimately I throw it back to people. Say, hey, like, you got to do what you want to do.
I think that's such a powerful position, because consumers are very intelligent and they can see your bias if you have it. And the fact that you're willing to say, we're open to all opportunities for improvement, that gives them even more confidence in what you say.
Yeah. And I think where I've really struggled, especially in the last 8 years, is people they put me in the no pharma box. And that I'm like, I just, I just I helped spearhead like a pharma research project. And I'm like, because I saw the science, so this could make a lot of sense for people. But at the same time, I'm going to do the same with nutrition, and exercise. And, at the end of the day, I know I sound like a broken record. It's up to the individual of what they're going to do. All I can do is provide a roadmap to what I've done. And that's something else I tell people. Find people who've succeeded and ask them what they did. They'll be happy to tell you. And I think that what I love about Instagram, people get all mad about social media, but I'm like, there's some really good stuff to it. Because I love finding photographs of people who are like in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, who are just killing it. And then I reverse engineer it. I study them. Like, what are you doing? Like, how many times a day are you exercising? Now I'm seeing that like some of these people are just twice a day. Okay, I didn't know that. That's what I encourage people to do. Like, find the people who are winning and reverse engineer it and see if some of it works for you. Yeah. So the diet, it's more or less, it's dairy-free, gluten-free, no beans, low fat, low sugar, low sodium, and lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of lean meats, chicken, fish, and low grains. So grains without gluten in them, but very low. That's the diet. And we also discuss optimal doses of vitamin D, and we have a list of supplements for people to take. All of it, 100% of it is free on mshope.com. No subscriptions, no commitments, no paywalls, no any of that. It's all free. You take it, rip it, download it, share it. Just don't sell it. Although I'm pretty sure some people have.
It would be really worthwhile if we started to create a repository of information that was just simply there for information's sake, to let people know what to do, what's possible out there for pain relief. Just like Matthew's done it for MS. We could do that for pain. And the more we do that, the more people will trust. That is our actual intent, is to help people with pain relief.
Yeah. And people really they need help with the vocabulary, and they actually just need to know how to advocate themselves in a medical system that sometimes isn't working in their favor. So that's where, if you see the PDF, we call it to give to your doctor. So if your doctor is like, nah, which is fine, like that can be their perspective. But if they don't have the information, they can't make the best decision. So we'll curate it for you to the best of our ability. Give it to your doctor, like let them tell you. And if they haven't read it, that's not your fault.
Matthew, does your dad, Ashton Embry, is he participating still as he was, 7 years ago when the film came?
No, he's resigned. I took over MS Hope. Well, I took over the charity about 6 months ago or 4 months ago, really. So he stepped down. And well, we're still he emailed me this morning. So I mean, we're back and forth on new stuff and the bigger picture vision. I have pretty big goals with what I want to achieve in the next 20 years before I die, before I leave. If I die, so I want to put that maybe up, I'm starting to wonder if I may be around longer than I think. Yeah, exactly. But him and I are still pretty tight.
I'm glad to hear that. He seems to be a real inspiration and a great relationship for you. Well, Matthew, thank you for this. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about your experience. And it has been inspiring for me, and I think it should be inspiring for how we approach the people that we know that are suffering from pain. There's so much that we could do better just from a data and an information standpoint. We got to get in the camera more. We got to share more. We got to know what our real intent. We really care for people and their pain reduction.
Yeah, I mean that is a huge lesson we have learned. It's just to reach people is a significant challenge. That's where the documentary was so powerful for us that way. That's why we're doing follow-up films, because to reach people in today's noise is so challenging, and they want the information, and sometimes they don't know a lot of times you don't know who to trust. So that's where we take that science-based approach. I have no conflicts, and that's that's another thing for me with MS Hope and just reaching the person. And if you have key information, it will spread. It'll take on a life of its own. And that's what I've also learned.
Because people feel that it's true and they want to share truth and hope with other people.
You got it. If you want to watch Living Proof, the doc, it's on Amazon Prime. If you don't have Amazon Prime, someone ripped it and put it on YouTube. So you go to YouTube and just Google Living Proof full documentary and you'll find it. If that doesn't work, you can write or call me. All my personal information is on mshope.com, and I've got DVDs. I can send you one. I'll send it for free. Every single person can start a brand new life right now. If you're watching this and you're hearing this message, like right now is the moment you can change your life. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. So you can turn this computer off. You can visit mshope.com. You can check out the science that your organization is providing. You can make a choice right now to amplify and elevate your life. I think ascension in this life starts in 1 second. And once you decide to go up, you start going up. Now, it's going to be like snakes and ladders every now and then, but if you just keep choosing good, either you're getting better or you're getting worse. There's very few times it's a middle ground. So make that choice right now. And then luckily the universe and however this works will keep giving you information to take you higher if you're open to it. So, I wish people the best, and I hope that you have the best time on this planet, because we only have so much time and it's ticking.